Welcome to Brave Healer Productions. We are waking the world up to what's possible for healing, one brave word at a time.
Did you guys know that reading poetry can lower your heart rate as effectively as meditating for 10 minutes? God, I love that statement. Welcome, everybody. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we are helping the world experience what's possible. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the amazing poets of one of our newest books. This one is called 100 Poems and Possibilities for Healing, and it's our volume 2. I couldn't help myself, you guys. I had to come back for the second volume. Like, this is going to be a thing. It is a thing. And I am so grateful to all of the poets I have in my Zoom room today. Miss Atlantis Wolf, Lulu Trevina, David McLeod, Karen Shooter are all here to talk about poetry and do this amazing thing. And you guys are going to hear some of the poetry today. So take that deep breath and let your heart rate start to drop a beat or two. I am going to start today with Miss Atlantis Wolf. And let me tell you a little bit about her. She is a group facilitator who teaches intuitive techniques to people so they can make decisions with natural confidence. Atlantis, how are you doing today?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me, Laura. Doing well. I'm here in the North Coast. We're having a nice blanket of snow right on time, and it's really beautiful. I was born in the winter, so I'm in my element.
We had it too. It's beautiful outside. I put the bird seed out and all the bright red cardinals on top of that bright white snow. Like that was a poem in and of itself. All right, Atlantis, tell us why poetry for you?
That's a really good question. Well, I was named after Emily Dickinson by my very literary mother. So it was not very common to be named Emily when I was born back in 1970, and I was the only one. Didn't have a bicycle license plate with my name on it, the little coffee mug. But being named after a poet really stuck with me. And so I started to read her poetry and realized that for me, this was the essence of writing. I love writing, bringing words together, playing with them. It's almost, it's like spells and spelling, all of that. But to me, poetry is different. It's the difference between water and elixir. There's something special that becomes distilled over many, many experiences when you're trying to find the right few words to describe an entire emotion. I believe that process is a natural process for me as a writer. It's like if you keep going from word cloud, got some words, got an idea, got a story, the natural endpoint is that vial of elixir that I would call a poem.
I love listening to you guys talk about poetry. So you have a poem ready for us. Do you want to go ahead and introduce that poem, the title, and then, oh, I cannot wait to hear you read this.
So in the book, I contributed 4 poems. And as a shamanic practitioner, I'm very much connected to the earth, the consciousness of the earth, the elements. So I wrote 4 poems, one for each of the cardinal directions, which also kind of ties into the 4 elements. So I'm going to read the first one, which is calling in the direction of the east. This is a prayer that you would say before a shamanic breath work or ritual or a celebration, and it would be calling in all of the spirits associated with the direction of the east. So you would face the east and say, We greet the direction of the east with love and gratitude. Hail to the rising sun, the first light. We bow to the long gold rays that activate our internal movements and summon our eyes to rise. Welcome, spirits of the element of water. Welcome, the ways of dreaming, of remembering our gestation when we formed our body around a single cell of being. We honor the natural rhythms of growth, of time to form and flow into cellular patterns to become heartbeat, hand, and spine. We honor movement and gyration when we mimic the energy flowing through waves, allowing the same energy to flow through our limbs, surrendered to the ecstatic, electric feeling of aliveness. We soften our imagination to remember when our bodies had fins, scales, and tails. And the rest of that poem and my other 3 are in the book.
You always get me right into my body with your poetry. And I'm like, yes, I love it. Thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for being in this project and pouring your heart and soul out onto these pages again with us. Thank you, Atlantis. All right, you guys. So let me introduce you next to Mr. David McLeod. He is a certified master life coach who supports middle-aged men and women to clear unconscious limiting beliefs in order to transform their lives into magnificent works of art. So welcome, David. How's it going today?
Well, thank you, Laura. I'm delighted to be here. Just looking forward to sharing my stuff with you all.
All right, I'm going to ask you the same thing. Why poetry, David? What has poetry meant in your life?
Well, it's interesting. Like most kids, I guess, I started writing poetry. Well, I started learning poetry, the nursery rhymes, that sort of thing that most people have heard in their childhood. And I found it rather fascinating the way the words could come together and make all kinds of interesting rhythms and stuff. I happen to be a musician, which of course I didn't know that when I was a child, but the idea of rhythm in words just really kind of resonated for me. And I think I wrote my first poem when I was probably 4 or 5 years old. And I'm sure it was something like, roses are red, violets are blue, sugar is sweet, I love you, something like that. How many kids don't start off with a poem like that? But I had fun with it. And I think it wasn't until I was about 12 years old that I actually wrote a poem that I thought was good enough to show the world. And I actually still have that poem, and I keep it in my little treasure chest. But yeah, the idea of writing poetry, it's been in my blood for years. I just got fascinated with it. And I discovered that I actually have a kind of a talent. I started writing poetry. Some of them were kind of trash. I've probably written, thousands of poems in my life. And many of them I decided they didn't deserve to be seen. And I said, thank you, God, Spirit, for letting me write this and learn something about myself. And thank you for letting me let it go. Which, by the way, that sometimes is pretty hard. Have you ever noticed that? Even a poem that you may not think is all that good, just trying to say goodbye to it is a challenge because it's born from our essence, from our spirit. It's part of who we are. So I'm sorry, I kind of ranted a little bit there, but
I so get it. So Yeah, you're making me chuckle a little bit about that one. It is hard to let go sometimes. And I love that you talked about learning through the writing process. So thank you for talking about that. You have a poem to share with us today. Would you take a minute to introduce that poem and read for us?
Sure. This poem is on page 223 of our book. I got to write chapter 21, and like Atlantis, I contributed 4 poems. My poems are all just taking aspects of myself. I use poetry as a way of journaling, as a way of writing things, and often new ideas come out. And I don't remember exactly what the rationale was for this poem, but it's called Dominoes. When dominoes fall, gravity is the inevitable victor. When dominoes fall, my world wobbles and spills me out. As I fall, as I flip-flop and flail like a caber tossed across the sky, as I am yanked into the spinning vortex of my own confusion, oh, look out, because the particles of fearlint stowed away in my pockets shake loose and succumb to centrifugal force to fly out like contaminated snowflakes from the dark corners of my mind into the stark, hot light of endless scrutiny, where they pollute everything within reach. The pressure squeezes the channels of my breath. My skin puckers in small, tight beads of rancid salt water. Color drains out of my eyes. As I fall and I tumble, and the last mote of control vanishes like a vestige of false imagination, I have become one of the dominoes, but I don't just fall over like the others. No, I topple and crash to the ground, and then I am again suddenly airborne, as if I have bounced, spun around, and slipped over the edge, a caricature of trampoline performer, into an abyss that is beyond my capacity to understand. It is brief, disorienting, yet strangely pleasant, like swimming in a syrup of warm atmosphere, until I notice the charged, spiky ground rushing up and threatening to disintegrate me in an electrifying plasma of domino dust. I'm going to leave it there and let you read the rest on your own on page 224, chapter 21. I hope you enjoy the rest of my poems.
Oh, the tease. Okay, I love that. You had me in there, and I'll give you some snaps. I'm going to give Atlantis some snaps. I didn't do that before in the open mic world where we're there with each other and people are on stage. We'll snap, we'll clap, we'll do all the things. David, thank you for being back in this volume and being here and pouring your heart and your soul out onto these pages. I appreciate you being here with us.
Well, thank you, Laura.
All right, you guys. So let me introduce to you Dr. Karen Shooter. She helps people in personal and professional caring roles to promote life balance, inner peace, and resilience so they can experience their own life's joys while they walk with others dealing with difficult times. Karen, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. I appreciate your leadership and presence.
Karen, why poetry? What has it meant for you in your life?
I love poetry, and I'm really just rediscovering it after many years. And one of the things I love about poetry is the many different levels of meaning that is put into it and read and gained from it. There's no right or wrong way to read or write poetry from my perspective, and it's a wonderful experience of discovering more about ourselves, learning and understanding that, but also being able to share our reality with the world.
So, Karen, you have a poem to share with us as well today. Would you take a minute and introduce it and read it for us?
Yeah, I am an ordained pastor, and so Much of my career has been leading in systems and in social contexts where a lot of people don't feel I should be there leading in a very patriarchal systems and society. So it's been a struggle for me to really, and also being a perfectionist, ongoing struggle in life to just embrace the beauty that I carry. And I know I'm not the only one in this world that has experienced such a struggle. And so the poem I'm going to share, it comes out of that struggle, and it is called I Think I Saw a Butterfly. And it's about seeing our inner beauty in a judgmental world. For the briefest of moments, on a very ordinary day, wings with blue, yellow, orange, and rose fluttered before my eyes, and I whispered, I think I saw a butterfly. My husband looked at me with brown, soulful eyes, his face creased with an impish grin as he said, every day I see that beautiful butterfly. A stranger walking by paused to look, and with the frown proclaimed, butterflies are only orange and green. You did not see a butterfly. In that moment, my child danced over with laughter on her lips. She threw her arms around me and sang, Mama, I love your butterfly. In response to such childish words, a critic's scowl deepened as he shook his head and shouted, You're imagining it. You did not see a butterfly. A friend stepped forward, not afraid to enter the fray, squinting as if to see more clearly while saying, Why, yes, I think I see a butterfly. I shut my ears and stopped to look on this very ordinary day when wings of blue, yellow, orange, and rose fluttered to a steady beat. I know I saw a butterfly.
Oh, yes. All the everybody, all the snaps. I love it. Oh, I love when you bring me into the visuals. I love the butterfly visual. Karen, that was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And my hope for the reader is that it helps readers to be able to see their own butterfly and understand that what matters most is that we see our own butterfly and not what other people say about it.
I love that. I've got my little one above my head there on the wall. Karen, thank you so much for saying yes to this project, for being here with us.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, I'm going to introduce you next to Miss Lulu Trevina. And Lulu is the founder of Live Life with Wonder. She's an award-winning author and artist who's passionate about shifting the societal narrative about women and age. Lulu, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you, Laura. Lovely to be with you all.
So answer that question. Why poetry for you?
Well, as I listened to the other poets, I was aware that I'm sitting right in the central panel of my bookshelf, and this is all poetry. The others are books. So I do have a deep love of poetry from a fairly young age. And I still have a very worn, yellowed piece of, I think it's fax paper, with the perforated things you pull off the side, of all the poems I wrote when I was like between 15 and 20. So I find it's like a chronological experience of my life. And as I journey through different times and experiences, if I can get those words kind of out, it kind of encapsulates it a little bit like a photograph does when you look back in memories. There's a photo. I find poetry does that for me in words. And because I was in the first edition of 100 Poems and Possibilities, I coined the phrase, poetry is the new sexy. But I actually think it's really, poetry for me is like the soul journey. It's like the soul remembering, the soul etchings or script. So yeah, I really love poetry, and I'm so glad that you're doing poetry in collaboration. It's just a fun project.
Oh my gosh, it's been the best ever getting all of you soul-filled people together. And of course, you have a poem to share with us. Would you take a minute to introduce it and read for us?
So my chapter is chapter 6, and it's What If You're the One You've Been Waiting For. So this one poem is called Loving Yourself. Loving yourself, yes, with all caps on, not a Hallmark card version, not a quick fix, not a mantra you say 3 times fast and forget. Loving yourself, expanded in every way, like it truly, deeply matters, because it truly, deeply matters. Loving yourself like that's what the whole crazy journey on earth has been all along. More than any goal or destination, there's nothing more important than this tender, pure love. This potent, refined love, resting, waiting, circulating within you. And what if all of this, the pain, the detours, and unmarked roads, the distractions, the busyness, was like a game of hide and seek, and you were it. And finding yourself, this sweet, wild delight, wasn't just the destination, but the journey itself. What if all along you were never truly lost, but circling closer and closer to the truth already inside you? You are the one you've been seeking all along, the light that guides you, the sanctuary that soothes you, the answer that has been quietly waiting, wrapped closer than close. You, love, it's always been you.
Beautiful, Lulu. Thank you for reading. Thank you so much for being here, being in this project with all of us.
Thank you.
So huge thank you to all 4 of you, really to the entire Poet Cast. This poetry thing has been an incredible passion of mine for so long, and having other people to play with in the sandbox in terms of poetry, in terms of collaboration like this, getting together to share like this. And all of our poets took on my challenge of writing a story first, like allowing you to get to know them a little bit and why poetry, right? So in each chapter, you're going to get to read their story, and then they have 4 beautiful poems for you. And then I said, hey, give the reader a prompt so they could do their own writing. And that is what you guys are going to find is a prompt at the top of the page. The rest of the page is blank. We want you to write in that book, and we want you to try this out and write some words and some sentences and see how you feel, how you're inspired by these prompts. I love it. I love the prompts. The healing in writing is real. You heard it in my opener statement about how good it is in terms of like even lowering your heart rate. But there's some other really incredible statistics about what poetry can do for you, and not just reading it, but writing it. So guys, I've got one more question for all of you. David, what's the most important thing you want people to know about poetry?
Well, I think what I have learned for myself is that poetry is the language of the soul. It seems to bypass the logical mind and go directly to the heart And it's a powerful, powerful way of communicating. And what I'd like people to know is that anybody can do this. If you give yourself a moment, if you give yourself permission to just simply listen and be present with your soul, and then just allow whatever comes to just fill up a page in front of you, you'll discover some amazing and beautiful wisdom that will just come forth from you. And it will have its own flavor. It might sound a little bit like something that someone else said, but I think ultimately it will be original. The other thing is, don't expect your poetry to be perfect, because when you have the expectation of perfection, you create a limitation on yourself. Instead, just simply allow it to be what it is, and then read it back to yourself. And what I find is when I do that, I see something else that maybe I didn't see before, and that allows me to write even more. So it becomes a kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy and a circular process, a creative process that is really, really powerful. And I just absolutely love writing poetry. That's all I can say.
You guys are going to love reading David's poetry in his chapter. David, thank you again for being a part of it.
Thank you.
Karen, what's the most important thing you want people to know about poetry?
That there's not a right or wrong way to be able to write down about your experience and to be creative with words. And I think using word pictures as well to help you understand pieces of yourself and of your experience in your life can help you embrace the beauty and the goodness that you carry within, and also help you be able to heal and grow in ways to let go of those pieces in life and in yourself that you don't want to be carrying continually. But also, and especially, you don't need to share what you write with anybody else if you don't want to. It can be a personal experience, and you will just benefit and grow from being able to use words to express yourself.
I love that you added that in, because, you know, our listeners are listening to you all who are published, and that takes a whole other level of courage. And I thank you all for you know, being courageous like that, being brave. But the healing in just journaling, the process of moving it out, is what's important. And if you have to burn those pages later, then do it because it's more about the process than it is having to share, having to publish, having to do anything else beyond. So thank you, Karen. Lulu, what's the most important thing you want people to know about poetry?
I'd like people to know that poetry for yourself is like writing yourself love letters, writing yourself healing letters, writing yourself grief letters, writing yourself pain letters. Like, your words are the language we use as humans. So when it comes from here through the heart and onto the paper, there's, you know, like an alchemical thing that happens. So whether it's my words or someone else's words or your words as a reader, writer, they have some sort of energy and wisdom, I believe, to offer you. So I hope everyone enjoys poetry, truly. Thank you.
Oh, energy and wisdom. Yes, yes, yes. In every single one of these chapters and poems. I cannot wait for you guys to read this book. Atlantis, you're going to close us out with the answer to this. What's that thing you want people to know about poetry?
When you're ready to write a poem, take your hands and put them on your heart and close your eyes and pick any emotion that comes up whenever you think of a scene or a person or a time in your life. And when you have that emotion, that energy in motion, and it feels like it wants to come out like a volcano, then take your hands away and let that flow down your arms, onto the page. Writing is better than typing because it's visceral and you have to really move that energy and put everything that you're feeling onto a page. And when you're ready, throw it away, burn it up, put it under a tree. One of the best things I ever did is I took all the poems that I ever wrote my entire life. And when I was 50, I had a ceremonial fire and I burned all of them up, because poetry is inside of you. It's in your cells, it's in your DNA, it's in you, it's about you. It can come out and come out again and come out in new ways. It's never going to be anything other than this infinite flow of creativity. So don't try and hold on to poetry. Let poetry flow through you again and again and again, and clean out everything that's stuck inside. That's my greatest wish for you.
I love that. Yes, I have been known to say I write to feng shui my soul, and poetry is definitely how I do that. Oh my goodness. Karen, David, Emily, Atlantis, and Lulu, thank you so much. Thank you, poets, for what you do in the world. And thank you for being here today to share it with everyone. Thanks, guys. 100
Thank
Poems
you.
and Possibilities for Healing, you guys. It's ready on Amazon. You can hop over today and grab your copy. Get ready. It's going to be an adventure. It's going to be a journey in healing. You can come rub elbows with our poet authors too, because we're going to have a little networking party on January 9th. It's going to be at 6 p.m. The Zoom information is down below. We hope you come and ask a question. We're going to have some of our poets reading, and we're going to talk all about poetry and have a really fun celebration. Lastly, today, everyone, remember your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone.